Humanity met the Galactic Empire and couldn't stop laughing. The first time humans met the Galactic Empire, no one expected it to be anything like this. Captain Luke Bennett adjusted the collar of his gray uniform and looked around the neutral space station. The station was enormous, built like a giant spider floating in space, with long metal arms stretching in all directions and lights blinking in strange rhythms. Humans had never seen anything like it. Luke's team was small. Lieutenant Clara Mason, the human diplomat with a sharp mind and even sharper wit. Alex Reed, the young tactical officer who could solve puzzles faster than anyone else. And two engineers, Sarah Lane and Peter Clark, who always seemed to be busy fixing things nobody else even noticed were broken. They were here to meet representatives of the Galactic Empire, the most powerful and strict civilization in the galaxy. The Empire's representatives had arrived first. They were tall, with silver skin that shimmered under the station lights. Their eyes were black like polished stones, and they had long fingers that moved with precision and grace. Their uniforms were sharp, and their movements were stiff, like they were always marching. At the front of the group was Commander Zara Klin, their leader. She stood taller than the rest, her presence commanding attention without even trying. Luke could feel the tension in the air. The humans were told to be polite, respectful, and serious. Any mistake could be seen as an insult. The Empire did not understand jokes, informal behavior, or laughter. And yet, Luke had a feeling this meeting was going to be very different. "Remember," Clara whispered as they approached the Imperial delegation, "no laughing. Keep your tone serious. Treat them with respect." "Do not," Luke cut her off with a grin. "Do not worry, Clara. I'll be serious. Dead serious." Clara rolled her eyes but did not say anything. She knew Luke meant the opposite. When they entered the grand meeting hall, it was even larger than the outside of the station suggested. The walls were made of a smooth, black material that reflected the light like a mirror. High above, a dome of glass showed the stars beyond, and hundreds of small Imperial officers stood in perfect rows, their eyes following every movement. Luke stepped forward and bowed slightly, trying to mimic the formal bow the Empire was known for. He ended up leaning too far and almost fell flat on the floor. Clara and Alex caught him just in time. The Empire officers watched silently, their faces unreadable. "Greetings, humans," Commander Zara said, her voice deep and cold. "We have been observing your species. Your behavior is unpredictable." Luke smiled, and before anyone could stop him, he said, "Thank you for noticing. We try our best." The humans tried to suppress their laughter, but it was already spreading between them. The Empire representatives did not laugh. They did not even blink. Instead, they tilted their heads slightly, as if trying to understand what had just happened. Zara narrowed her eyes. "This is a serious meeting. Your species is expected to behave according to our protocols. You will speak only when instructed. You will show respect at all times. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am," Clara said, trying to sound serious. "Yes, Commander," Luke added. Then he leaned slightly to Alex and whispered, "We're already off to a perfect start." Alex snorted quietly, trying not to laugh. Clara glared at both of them, but even she felt her lips twitch. The meeting began with the Empire presenting their records of humanity. Charts and holograms filled the room. They spoke of human history, wars, inventions, and exploration, all in precise and boring detail. The Empire had studied humans carefully, but they still did not understand them. Luke watched the holograms with interest. He saw an image of the first human colony on Mars. He whispered to Clara, "You know, I bet the Empire thinks our big invention there was putting dust in a can and calling it Mars soil." Clara tried to cover her smile, but Alex burst out laughing. Luke laughed too, and even Sarah and Peter couldn't stop themselves. The sound echoed in the hall. The Empire representatives froze, their black eyes widened. Zara's jaw tightened. "This behavior is not acceptable," she said. Luke raised his hands in mock surrender. I'm sorry. We just find this very impressive. Your charts, your maps, they are so shiny, we can't help but laugh. There was a pause. Then Zara said slowly, humans, you do not follow protocol, you act strangely. Luke grinned. You could say that, we act human. At that moment, a small Imperial aide tripped over a cable and fell. The humans could not hold it in. They laughed even harder. Luke bent over, holding his stomach, tears in his eyes. Clara tried to stay serious, but the sound of human laughter was too contagious. Even some of the younger Imperial aides looked like they were trying not to smile. Zara's face went red. She had no idea what to do. Nothing in the Imperial manuals prepared her for this. The humans were not just ignoring the rules, they were turning them upside down and they were enjoying it. After the laughter subsided, Luke straightened up and gave a polite bow. I apologize again. Humans have a strange way of showing respect. Sometimes it comes out as laughter. It is honorable in our culture. The Empire representatives did not respond. They were confused. Commander Zara opened her mouth to say something, then closed it. Finally, she said, "You are unlike any species we have met." "Proceed with your introduction." Luke smiled. "I'm Captain Luke Bennett of the human exploration vessel Horizon. This is Lieutenant Clara Mason, our diplomat, Alex Reed, our tactical officer, Sarah Lane and Peter Clark, our engineers. We come in peace and in good humor." Zara's expression remained unreadable, but the tension in the room eased slightly. The humans were calm, confident, and strange. They did not fear the Empire. That was something no other species had ever done. The Empire began to ask questions. They asked about human technology, government, and culture. Luke answered with honesty and a hint of humor. "Our spaceships are fast, yes, but we also use them for racing on weekends. You might call it sport." The Imperials did not understand at first. "Sport?" Zara asked. Luke nodded seriously. "Yes, we race our ships for fun. It is dangerous, exciting, and it builds teamwork. We also like to tell jokes while racing, keeps morale high," Alex added, "and sometimes we crash. But that is part of the learning." Zara stared at them. She had studied human history and technology, but nothing in the records explained this behavior. Other species would never laugh in a situation like this. They would be afraid, rigid, or formal, but humans were different. They used humor to survive, to communicate, and to connect. The meeting continued for hours. The humans answered questions, explained their systems, and even demonstrated some technology. At one point, Luke handed a small device to an Imperial aide and said, "This can make your tea exactly how you like it, or blow up if you press the wrong button. We call it experimental." The aide's eyes widened, but Luke winked. "Don't worry, mostly safe. We test everything ourselves first." Even Zara could not hide the faint twitch of amusement. The humans were fearless. They were honest, and they did not try to impress the Empire with false respect. They simply were themselves, and somehow that was powerful. By the end of the meeting, something had changed. The Empire representatives no longer looked completely confident. They were puzzled, cautious, and, deep down, slightly worried. Humans were not just a new species to meet. They were a species that could not be fully controlled or predicted. Luke stood at the center of the hall and looked at Zara. "We know we are small in numbers," he said. "We know we are new to the galactic stage. But we also know one thing: humans survive. We adapt and we laugh. It keeps us going." For the first time, Zara felt a strange sensation. She could not call it fear. It was not anger. It was curiosity, and maybe, just maybe, a little respect. As the humans prepared to leave, Luke turned to his team and whispered, "Well, that went better than expected. Did anyone else feel like we just confused an entire empire with our laughter?" Clara smiled despite herself. "Yes, and don't forget, we're just getting started." Alex grinned. "Next time we should bring more jokes." Peter and Sarah nodded. "Absolutely." Luke laughed quietly and shook his head. "Let's just survive the first impression first. The Empire has never met humans like us." and I have a feeling they'll remember today for a long time." As the human team walked out of the hall, their laughter echoed faintly behind them. Somewhere in the rows of rigid, silver-skinned officers, a few young aides exchanged glances and smiled nervously. They did not understand why the humans were laughing. They did not understand why the laughter was so powerful, and that was the point. Humanity had arrived in the Galactic Empire, and the first thing they did was laugh. And somehow that simple act was already changing everything. The humans did not have much time to rest. A few days after the first meeting, they were invited, or rather summoned, to the Empire's ceremonial hall on the flagship, a massive spaceship that orbited a distant star. The hall was enormous, with a ceiling so high it seemed to touch the stars. Golden panels ran along the walls, and strange symbols glowed faintly, showing the power and history of the Empire. Hundreds of Imperial officers waited silently in neat lines, their silver uniforms glinting under the lights. Luke Bennett stepped into the hall first, adjusting his uniform. He looked around and whispered to Clara Mason, "I think they built this just to make people nervous." "It's working," Clara shook her head. "Don't joke now, keep it serious. Remember what happened last time." Luke grinned, serious as a meteor crash. The humans walked slowly down the central aisle. Commander Zara Klin waited at the front, her expression stern, almost cold. Her black eyes scanned the humans, and her hands were clasped tightly behind her back. She had expected the humans to act nervous, scared, or formal. She had not expected them to walk confidently, even casually, like they owned the place. "This hall is for ceremony," Zara said in a sharp tone. "All species show respect here. You will follow the protocol exactly. Do you understand?" "Yes, Commander," Clara said politely. "Yes, Commander," Luke said, and he added in a low voice to Alex Reed, "I feel like this is the part where we trip over something." Alex snorted quietly. Sarah Lane rolled her eyes and Peter Clark muttered, "Please don't." The humans were led to the center of the hall. The Empire had arranged chairs in precise rows. On a raised platform sat the High Council, powerful officers who decided the Empire's policies. Their expressions were all serious. Every eye in the hall followed the humans' movements. Zara motioned for Luke to start the introduction. Luke cleared his throat and smiled. "Thank you for having us. We are here to learn, to talk, and to share ideas. Humans are honest and we speak our minds. Sometimes we laugh. We hope that is acceptable." There was silence. Not a single smile appeared on any Imperial face. Then Clara Mason spoke. "We also hope to understand your culture, and we hope you can understand ours. Humans are unusual, but our intentions are peaceful." The High Council listened without reacting. That silence felt heavy, like a pressure building in the room. Luke shifted slightly and whispered to Clara, "Okay, now the fun part." Before Clara could respond, Sarah Lane accidentally pressed a button on her wrist device. A small holographic image appeared in the center of the hall, showing the human team in playful poses, waving at the council. A tiny cartoon dog popped up next to them, barking loudly. The humans froze, realizing what had happened. Luke's mouth opened, but before he could apologize, the council members blinked slowly. Then one of the younger officers coughed, and another cleared his throat. The sound was so unusual in that silent hall that Alex Reed's shoulders shook, and he tried to hide a laugh. Zara's eyes widened. She glared at Sarah, who was still panicking. Luke, however, bowed dramatically to the hologram. "We bring gifts, and this one is our sense of humor," he said. The hall remained silent, but a small ripple of uncertainty moved through the officers. After the awkward moment, the ceremony began. The Empire had prepared a long sequence of formal rituals for the humans to perform. There were steps, bows, and phrases to say in the Imperial language. It was precise and complex. Clara studied the instructions carefully. "We have to follow exactly," she said, reading from the holographic tablet. Luke raised an eyebrow. "Exactly?" Clara glared at him. Exactly. The humans tried. They bowed, stepped, and spoke the phrases. But somehow things went wrong. Luke leaned too far forward and almost collided with the holographic podium. Peter mispronounced the phrases and added extra words that were not in the script. Sarah spun around at the wrong moment, knocking over a small ceremonial vase. The vase did not break, but it rolled across the floor, causing a loud metallic sound. The human team could not contain themselves. They laughed. Clara tried, but even she eventually gave in. Alex and Luke laughed so hard that they were holding their stomachs. The sound echoed through the hall, bouncing off the high ceiling. The Imperial officers froze. Zara's face went red. She had seen humans act strangely before, but this was something else. The humans were breaking protocol in ways that should have been impossible. And yet they were not afraid. They were not ashamed. They were laughing, enjoying themselves, and even smiling while doing it. "Enough!" Zara shouted. The voice echoed like a thunderclap. "You are dishonoring this hall. You are disrespecting the Empire." Luke bowed again, still grinning. "We apologize, Commander, but humans believe laughter is respectful in its own way. It shows honesty and courage. We hope you will understand." Some of the council members exchanged confused glances. One young officer whispered something, and another shook his head. It was clear the humans were bending their strict rules, and yet they did not seem to be punished or scared. After a few more attempts at ceremony, the humans tried a different approach. Instead of following every step perfectly, they added small jokes. Clara said a phrase in the Imperial language, but changed the tone slightly so it rhymed with another word. Luke leaned forward as if bowing, but added a little dance step. Alex carried a ceremonial scroll upside down and pretended to read it with a funny accent. The hall erupted in whispers. The council members did not know how to respond. Some younger aides tried to hide smiles. Even the officers who were supposed to be most serious were blinking rapidly, clearly struggling to maintain their composure. Zara's hands clenched into fists. "Humans," she shouted, "stop this at once. This is a serious hall. You will not." Before she could finish, Luke interrupted. "We cannot stop, Commander. We are humans. We laugh, we move, we play, and we survive that way. Maybe one day you will understand." Zara stared at him, her face a mixture of disbelief and frustration. No other species had ever dared to behave this way. The humans were bold, fearless, and utterly unpredictable. After what felt like hours, the ceremony ended, though it had not gone as the Empire expected. The humans had survived the strict rules, broken some, ignored others, and laughed through most of it. They had made mistakes, but those mistakes were exactly what made them human, and somehow that was powerful. Once the humans were outside the ceremonial hall, they leaned against the wall and laughed together. Clara Mason shook her head. "We are lucky we did not get arrested or vaporized." Luke grinned. "Lucky? I'd call it effective. Did you see the look on Zara's face?" "She is still trying to figure us out," Alex added. "I think we may have started a small revolution in her mind, or at least a headache." Sarah and Peter laughed. "We are definitely memorable," Peter said. They walked down the long corridors of the flagship. The ship was enormous, with shining metal floors and walls that seemed to stretch forever. Humans had explored ships before, but this was on another level. Every corner held a strange machine, a glowing panel, or a moving platform. Clara stopped at a window and looked out. "The Empire is vast. One human ship is tiny compared to this. And yet we made them uncomfortable. We made them laugh. That is something no other species has done before." Luke nodded. "Exactly. They underestimate us because we are small in numbers. They underestimate us because we are unpredictable, but laughter is a weapon they cannot control." Alex frowned slightly. "Do you think they will try to punish us next time?" Luke shrugged. "Maybe, but if they do, we'll just keep being human. We survive, we adapt, and we laugh. That's our strength." Later, in the humans' temporary quarters, the team gathered to review what had happened. Sarah Lane pulled up a small screen and replayed the ceremony. Every slip, every mistake, every laugh was shown. Peter Clark shook his head. I can't believe we did all that in front of the Empire, and yet I feel proud. Clara Mason smiled faintly. We showed them who we are, not with weapons, not with power, but with honesty and humor. That is the human way. Luke Bennett leaned back in his chair. And the best part, they do not know how to handle it. That is our advantage. Humans are unpredictable and we are not afraid. They cannot take that from us. The humans laughed again, quietly this time, knowing that the Empire officers were probably still replaying the ceremony in their minds. Somewhere, deep inside the ranks of the strict, formal officers, the image of humans laughing would not leave them. And that was the point. Humanity had entered the heart of the Galactic Empire, and they had done it not with guns or fleets, but with laughter. That simple, honest, human laughter was already changing the way the galaxy would see them. The humans had survived the ceremonial hall, and now the Empire decided to test them in a different way. Not with speeches or bows, but with a tactical simulation designed to show how small and weak humans really were. Captain Luke Bennett, Lieutenant Clara Mason, and their team were led to a large room aboard the flagship. The walls were lined with glowing screens, and a giant map of a star system floated in the center of the room. The Empire called this a war game. Commander Zara Klin stood at the front. Her expression was stern as always. This is a simple test, she said. You will demonstrate your ability to follow orders and make tactical decisions. Failure will show that humans are not ready for galactic interaction. Luke looked at the floating map and raised an eyebrow. Simple, huh? Clara gave him a warning look. Luke, remember, serious. Yes, ma'am, he said. Then, under his breath, he muttered, but simple is fun. The simulation began. The humans were placed in command of a small fleet of ships. Their objective was to protect a colony while navigating through enemy forces. The Empire had set up every obstacle, every ambush, and every trap to make sure the humans would fail. Alex Reed studied the map quickly. These enemy movements are predictable, he said, but they are counting on us to follow standard tactics. We won't. Luke grinned. Good. Let's see what happens when humans play their own game. The first move surprised the Empire. Instead of following the expected routes, the humans split their fleet in unexpected ways. They sent ships in odd patterns, sometimes doubling back, sometimes moving slowly as if they were confused. Zara and the Council watched closely. The officers whispered to each other. They are making mistakes, one said. Surely they will fail. But the humans were not making mistakes. They were improvising. They used the rules in ways the Empire had never considered. Alex diverted some ships to fake attacks, drawing enemy fire away from the colony. Clara sent small squads in unpredictable routes, confusing the AI-controlled enemy ships. Luke, meanwhile, made comments out loud as if narrating a story. Watch this, he said. Fleet 3, do a loop and pretend you are lost. Enemy will follow. Yes, just like that. Perfect confusion. The humans laughed quietly as they watched the enemy fleet respond exactly as predicted. The Empire officers were shocked. Their perfect simulation was failing. The humans were winning. Zara's eyes narrowed. Impossible, she muttered. They cannot be this effective. They are playing. Playing is what humans do best, Luke said under his breath, smiling. The simulation became more chaotic. Alex noticed a weakness in the enemy formation and whispered, if we push here, they will panic. He moved the fleet, and as expected, the enemy AI recalculated incorrectly. Ships collided, routes overlapped, and the defense lines fell apart. Luke laughed quietly. I told you, Clara, humans don't just fight, we make chaos look good. Clara smiled. It is working, just don't get caught. The Empire officers were now muttering nervously. Some younger officers were biting their lips to stop themselves from showing surprise. No other species had ever defeated the simulation in this way. Humans had bent the rules, used humor, and exploited creativity. Luke noticed a small Imperial drone trying to scan the fleet. He grabbed a console and tapped a few buttons. The drone began following the wrong ships, spinning in circles and even bumping into enemy vessels. "See that? Laughter is contagious in machines too," he whispered, chuckling. After several hours, the humans had successfully protected the colony. Not only had they survived, they had done so in a way that confused the Empire completely. Every officer in the observation room was silent, trying to understand what had happened. Zara clenched her fists. "This is unacceptable. They are cheating." Luke grinned. "Cheating? No. We are just being human." The council called an immediate debrief. Humans were asked to explain their strategy. Luke stood calmly. "We used what humans use best: imagination, adaptability, and a little bit of humor. We did not follow the rules exactly, but we stayed focused on our goal. That is how humans solve problems." Clara added, "We adapt to situations. We do not panic. We think creatively and act together. That is our strength." The Imperial officers were shocked. No species had ever described their approach this way. Most followed rules perfectly but failed when the unexpected happened. Humans thrived in the unexpected. "Explain the laughter," one officer demanded. "Why do you laugh in serious situations?" Luke shrugged. "Laughter keeps us calm. It reminds us that mistakes are not the end. It makes us stronger, and it confuses the enemy." The officers exchanged confused looks. Laughter was not a tool in their manuals. They had never considered it a tactic. After the debrief, Luke and his team were allowed to rest. They went to a small room on the flagship with a window looking out at the stars. Alex leaned back in his chair. "We did it. We actually beat them at their own game." Sarah laughed. "I can't believe it." "The Empire thought we would fail immediately." Peter shook his head. "And now they probably hate us more than ever." Clara smiled faintly. "Or maybe they respect us in a small, very confused way. They cannot understand us, but they cannot ignore us either." Luke looked out at the stars and smiled. "Exactly. That is the human way. Survive, adapt, and laugh. Sometimes that is more powerful than any weapon." Later, Luke and Clara walked through the corridors of the flagship. Everywhere they went, humans left small traces of unpredictability. They joked quietly as they passed officers, who stared at them silently. They smiled at strange panels, pressed buttons that did nothing, and made casual remarks about the enormity of the ship. Zara Klin watched them from a distance. She had been trained to enforce discipline, to punish mistakes, to maintain order. But these humans, they were something she could not control. They were clever, fearless, and unpredictable. And every small action, every laugh, made her wonder if the Empire had underestimated them. The next day, the Empire organized another simulation, more complex and more dangerous. This time, humans were tasked with navigating a system filled with traps, enemy fleets, and unstable planets. Luke studied the map. "Okay, team, time for a little fun," he said. "Remember, we survive, we adapt, and we confuse them." Clara rolled her eyes. "Fun? Really?" "Yes." "Very serious fun," Luke replied. The simulation began. Humans again acted in unexpected ways. They split fleets, used feints, and created false signals. They even sent decoy ships that appeared to crash, only to reappear in a better position. Every move broke the Empire's expectations. Zara watched speechless. The officers whispered nervously. How are they doing this?" one said. Luke laughed quietly as his fleet moved. "This is how humans think," he whispered. "Unpredictable, clever, and a little bit silly. Works every time." By the end of the simulation, the humans had completed every objective. The Empire's plans had failed completely. They were forced to admit that humans were not only capable but clever in ways no one had imagined. Afterward, the humans were debriefed again. This time the council could only ask a few questions. "How do you do this?" one officer asked. Luke smiled. We survive, we adapt, and we laugh, that is all. Clara added, we do not follow every rule exactly. We think creatively, and we work together, that is our strength. The council members were silent. They could not argue. They had lost to a species that refused to follow rules, that laughed through every challenge, and that survived in ways they could not understand. Luke looked at his team and whispered, "See. Humans are unstoppable when they use their heads and a little humor." Sarah laughed quietly. "I think we broke them," Peter nodded. "And they don't even know it yet." As the humans left the simulation room, officers were still talking quietly among themselves. The Empire had underestimated humans. They had thought rules and discipline would make them weak. Instead, humans had used creativity, humor, and teamwork to succeed in ways the Empire could not predict. Luke, Clara, Alex, Sarah, and Peter walked down the corridors, smiling. They were exhausted, but their spirits were high. The Empire might be vast and powerful, but humans had shown that brains, courage, and a little laughter could outmatch even the most disciplined force. Luke looked at the stars outside the windows. "Humans are small," he said. "We do not have fleets the size of the Empire. We do not have centuries of training, but we have something else, something they cannot copy, something they cannot control. Humor, creativity, and adaptability, that is power." Clara smiled faintly. "And unpredictability." "Don't forget that," Luke laughed softly. "Of course, humans are the most unpredictable creatures in the galaxy. That is our gift and our weapon." The stars moved past the flagship, and the humans knew one thing clearly. The Empire had just discovered that humans were not ordinary. They were clever, bold, and above all human. The humans had survived the Empire's simulations twice. Now the Empire decided to show them the real power of their military. Not just tests or holograms, but the full strength of the Imperial fleet. Hundreds of massive ships moved in formation around a small planet. The humans were led to an observation platform high above the surface where they could see the full fleet. Luke Bennett looked at the ships and whistled softly. "Well, that's intimidating." Clara Mason crossed her arms. "Yes, it is. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons. But we've done simulations. We can handle this." Alex Reed tilted his head. "Handle or survive," Luke grinned. "Both if we're clever and if we laugh a lot." Sarah Lane and Peter Clark looked uneasy. The sheer size of the fleet was overwhelming. These were not simulations. These were real warships ready to fight, destroy, and dominate. Commander Zara Klin stood beside them. Her black eyes scanned the humans. "This is your final test. Observe, analyze, and respond. You will be intimidated. You will feel fear. That is normal. How you react will determine if the Empire accepts humans as equals." Luke looked at her and smiled. "Fear, us. Don't worry, we feel fear. And then we do something ridiculous to make it better." Clara sighed. "Just try not to get us killed this time." The Empire began their demonstration. Ships moved in formation, showing their firepower, coordination, and speed. Lasers streaked across the sky, and explosions flashed on the planet's surface below. The humans watched carefully, taking notes and observing patterns. Alex Reed leaned forward. "They are too organized, too precise, but there's a pattern. They expect obedience and predictability. That is their weakness." Luke grinned. "Perfect. We'll exploit it." The humans were given a small fleet of their own, mostly older ships, slower and smaller than the Empire's vessels. Most species would have panicked at the sight of such overwhelming force. Humans, however, smiled. They had a plan. "Remember," Luke said to the team, "we survive, we adapt, and we confuse them. And we have humor. That is our secret weapon." The first maneuver began. The Empire instructed the humans to move their ships in a strict formation. The humans followed, but with a twist. Luke added small, unexpected changes. Ships spun in slight circles, accelerated suddenly, and moved in playful patterns. The Empire officers watched in horror. Their strict formation rules were being broken. Their sensors reported unusual activity and their calculations were failing. "Why are they doing that?" Zara whispered. "They should be terrified." "They are playing," one officer asked. Luke laughed softly as he watched the enemy officers struggle. "Exactly. Humans play, even in the middle of a battle. It makes us unpredictable." Clara Mason controlled a squadron of ships and used a feint maneuver. She pretended one squadron was retreating, drawing the Empire ships into a trap. Then, in a sudden move, the squadron returned, firing at weak points in the enemy formation. The Empire had not predicted it. Alex Reed controlled another group. He sent a small decoy ship toward the enemy. The ship appeared to crash into a massive warship, but at the last moment it jumped out of view and reappeared behind the enemy line. The Imperial officer's calculations failed completely. Luke watched all this with amusement. See, chaos, confusion, and a little bit of laughter. That is how humans fight. The Empire tried to respond. Their ships fired lasers, tried to adjust formations, and even deployed small attack drones. But every move was anticipated by the humans, not because they had faster technology, but because they thought differently. They saw possibilities the Empire had never considered. "Unbelievable," Zara muttered. "They are surviving and winning against our full force." Meanwhile, Luke added humor to their tactics. He instructed one ship to fly in loops that made patterns resembling a smiley face. Another squadron waved their lights in patterns that almost looked like a dance. The Empire officers were watching, trying to stay serious, but even some younger aides could not hide confused smiles. Clara noticed the effect. "Look at them," she whispered. "They don't understand our humor. It's confusing them more than our maneuvers." "Exactly," Luke said. "Humans don't just fight, we play, and that makes us stronger." The battle continued for hours. Humans used every trick they could think of. They created fake retreats, confusing formations, and even small holographic decoys that made enemy ships fire at nothing. Every move combined strategy with unpredictability. Every laugh, joke, or playful maneuver increased the chaos. At one point, Luke's ship flew close to a massive Imperial cruiser. Instead of hiding or attacking, he sent a small message over the Empire's communication channels. "Hello from the humans. Hope you like our dance moves." The Empire officers froze. Their sensors detected no immediate threat, but the message itself was unusual. No species had ever sent something like this in the middle of a battle. Zara's jaw tightened. "Stop this," she shouted. "This is not acceptable behavior," Luke grinned. "Commander, humans are always this way. We laugh even in serious situations. That is who we are." Alex Reed used the distraction to send a squadron behind the enemy line. They disabled key weapons without firing a single shot directly. The Empire was confused. Their systems reported failures, collisions, and unexpected movements, but nothing made sense. Clara Mason directed the fleet toward the planet's surface. "Use the terrain, hide behind asteroids, move in unpredictable ways, keep them guessing." The Empire tried to maintain order, but their perfect coordination was failing. Each time they adapted, the humans changed tactics. Each time they planned a trap, humans turned it into a joke or distraction. The humans' laughter, humor, and creativity became a weapon. Hours later, the simulation ended, or rather, the Empire conceded. The humans had achieved every objective without a single ship lost, while the Empire's formations were completely disrupted. The Council officers were silent. Their faces showed confusion, frustration, and something else, a grudging respect. Zara stepped forward. "Humans," she said, her voice measured but stern, "you have survived. You have succeeded where most species would fail. And yet, I do not understand you. You fight with humor and somehow it works." Luke smiled. "Commander, that is the human way. We survive, we adapt, and we laugh. That is our power. Not guns, not fleets, not rules us." Clara added, "We think differently. We see possibilities that others ignore. We turn mistakes into opportunities. And yes, we laugh even in the face of danger. The council members were quiet. No other species had ever described their approach so clearly and confidently. Zara finally spoke. "Your actions are remarkable. You are unlike any species we have encountered. The Empire does not know what to do with you." Luke grinned. "That's fair. Humans are unpredictable. That is our gift and sometimes our weapon." As the humans walked back to their quarters, they laughed quietly among themselves. Sarah Lane shook her head. "We actually did it. We faced the full Empire fleet and lived." "And they were confused the entire time," Peter Clark chuckled. "And they probably still are. No one else could survive like that." Alex Reed smirked. "They underestimate humans at their own risk. And the best part, we did it our way, not theirs." Clara Mason smiled faintly. "We have shown them that brains, creativity, and courage are just as powerful as technology. And humor is something they cannot control." Luke looked out at the stars. "Exactly. That is why humans are special. Small numbers, limited ships, but endless creativity and laughter. That is what makes us unstoppable." The humans gathered later in their quarters, reviewing what had happened. They laughed again at the records, the logs, and the reactions of the Imperial officers. Every mistake, every joke, every unexpected move had worked in their favor. "This is incredible," Sarah said. "We survived the largest fleet in the Empire and caused chaos without firing much at all." Peter nodded. "And the best part, they can't figure out how we did it." "That makes it even better." Alex leaned back. "We are small, we are new, but humans are clever, adaptable, and fearless. That is why the galaxy should take notice." Luke smiled, feeling proud of his team. "We have shown them that humans are not just another species. We are unpredictable, creative, and fun, and that is more powerful than any fleet or weapon." As the stars glimmered outside the windows, the humans knew one thing: the Empire had learned a new lesson. Humans could not be controlled, intimidated, or predicted. And most importantly, humans could survive anything and laugh while doing it. The humans had faced the Empire's fleet, survived impossible simulations, and even laughed through every challenge. Now, they were summoned to the council chamber for a final meeting. This time, it was not a test or a demonstration. It was a moment that would decide humanity's place in the galaxy. Captain Luke Bennett walked confidently into the chamber. Clara Mason, Alex Reed, Sarah Lane, and Peter Clark followed closely behind. The council chamber was enormous, more massive than any room they had ever seen. A high dome ceiling stretched above them, showing distant stars beyond the glass. The council members sat on raised platforms, their faces serious, but something was different this time. A few younger officers looked nervous, whispering among themselves. Commander Zara Klin waited at the front. Her expression was unreadable. "Humans," she said slowly, "you have completed every challenge set before you. You have survived our fleet, our simulations, and our tests. And yet you did it in ways the Empire cannot fully understand." Luke grinned. "That's fair, Commander. We humans are unpredictable. We adapt, we survive, and we laugh." Clara stepped forward. "We also work together. We think creatively. We use what we have to overcome what we face. That is how humans succeed." The council members were quiet. Their silence was heavy, not hostile but thoughtful. No species had ever completed the Empire's tests in this way. No one had survived and thrived using humor and creativity as a weapon. Zara spoke again. "Your methods are unusual. Your behavior is strange. And yet, your results are undeniable. The Empire has underestimated you, and for that, we must acknowledge your species' abilities." Luke nodded. "Acknowledgement is good, but we hope for more than that. Humans want respect, not because we demand it, but because we earn it." One of the High Council members, a tall figure with glowing blue eyes, leaned forward. "Explain again your strategy. How did you survive against a fleet far larger than your own and succeed where others would fail?" Alex Reed spoke carefully. "We observed carefully, studied patterns and looked for weaknesses. We used creativity where others use rules. We adapted to situations, made unexpected moves, and yes, we used humor to reduce stress and confusion. That gave us an advantage no machine or calculation could predict. The council members exchanged glances. Some of them whispered, clearly impressed. Laughter and creativity as strategy was not something taught in the Empire's academies. Clara added, "We do not rely only on technology. Humans survive by thinking, by adapting, and by being unpredictable. That is our greatest strength." The chamber was silent for a moment. Finally, Zara Klin spoke, her voice measured. "Humans, the Empire recognizes that you are not merely another species to catalog or study. You are unique. Your creativity, courage, and humor make you formidable. You are not to be underestimated." Luke smiled. "Thank you, Commander. That is exactly what we hoped you would understand. Humans are small in numbers, but we are large in imagination, courage, and spirit. And we make mistakes. We laugh. And sometimes that is our best weapon." The council members were quiet, considering his words. The younger officers were nodding slightly, impressed. Even the oldest, most disciplined members were silent, perhaps realizing that they had misjudged humans. Zara motioned for the humans to approach the central platform. "We would like to offer you a seat at the Galactic Council," she said. "Not for your obedience or your size, but for your ingenuity, courage, and resilience. The galaxy will be stronger with humans included." The humans exchanged glances. Clara smiled faintly. "A seat on the council, that is an honor." Luke stepped forward, bowing slightly. "We accept, not because we seek power, but because humans have ideas, solutions, and humor to offer. The galaxy will be a better place with cooperation, creativity, and yes, a little laughter." The council members studied him carefully. This was unusual. No other species had ever accepted a position in the council with such honesty, humility, and humor. The humans were not trying to impress, intimidate, or manipulate. They were simply themselves. Zara's eyes softened slightly. "Humans, you have changed the way the Empire views your species. You have shown that strength is not only measured by weapons or numbers, but by courage, creativity, and spirit. We welcome you." Luke smiled widely. "Thank you, Commander. We hope the Empire remembers one thing: humans survive, humans adapt, and humans laugh. And that will never change." Alex Reed grinned. "And we don't follow predictable rules. That is our advantage." Sarah Lane laughed softly. "I think we've made a lasting impression." Peter Clark nodded. "They'll never forget humans, that's for sure." The council members observed quietly. For the first time, they seemed unsure. How could a species so small in number, with older ships and limited technology, stand before the greatest power in the galaxy and not only survive, but earn respect? Luke looked at the stars through the glass dome above. "Humans are not invincible," he said softly, "but we are clever, we adapt, we see possibilities others do not, and sometimes we laugh when everyone else is serious. That is our gift." Clara stepped closer. "The Empire has rules, structures, and order. Humans have creativity, unpredictability, and spirit. Together, that can create something stronger than either alone." Zara Klin studied her carefully. For decades, she had enforced discipline, punished mistakes, and expected obedience. Humans were challenging everything she believed about power and control, and yet, she could not deny that they had succeeded. They had survived where others would fail. "Perhaps," Zara said slowly, "the galaxy has underestimated humans for too long. Perhaps it is time to reconsider what power truly means." Luke grinned. "Exactly, Commander. Humans are not ordinary. We are small, yes. But our ideas, courage, and laughter, those are bigger than any fleet or weapon." The Council voted unanimously to grant humans recognition as equals in the Galactic Council. For the first time, humans had a voice in the decisions of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Their methods were strange, their humor confusing, and their strategies unpredictable, but effective. After the council session, the humans were invited to a celebration aboard the flagship. It was unusual, formal, and tense at first. The Empire officers were polite, but many were still unsure how to interact with humans. Luke and his team, however, found ways to make the gathering lighter. Luke walked among the officers, smiling and telling small, harmless jokes. Clara explained human customs in simple terms. Alex demonstrated human tactics in a playful simulation. Sarah and Peter shared small inventions and gadgets that were entertaining, if impractical. Gradually, officers began to relax. Younger aides laughed quietly at the humans' antics. Even some older members could not resist a faint smile. For the first time, humans had not only survived the Empire but had subtly changed its culture. Zara Klin observed silently. She could not admit it outright, but she was impressed. These humans had entered the heart of the Empire, faced its tests, and done so without fear. And they had done it their way, with humor, creativity, and courage. Luke leaned against a railing and whispered to Clara, "I think we did it. We survived, we earned respect, and we made them laugh a little. That is enough for today," Clara smiled. "Yes, but tomorrow we keep being humans, that is our power," Alex grinned. "And unpredictable humans are dangerous humans." Sarah laughed softly. "I like that." "Dangerous and clever," Peter nodded, and remembered, "no one will forget humans after this." The stars glimmered outside the flagship windows. The humans looked out at them, feeling proud and alive. They had entered the Empire, faced the impossible, and left a mark. Their laughter, their ingenuity, and their courage had done what no fleet or weapon could. They had earned respect. Luke smiled. "Humans are small, yes, but we are clever, brave, and unafraid. And that is something the galaxy cannot ignore." Clara nodded. "We adapt. We survive, and we laugh." Alex, Sarah, and Peter joined in, laughing quietly among themselves. It was a human habit, a reminder of who they were, and a signal that the galaxy had just met something new, something extraordinary. Somewhere in the council chamber, Zara Klin watched silently, thinking about humans, their laughter, and their courage. For the first time, she realized that strength did not always lie in numbers or rules. Sometimes it lay in unpredictability, creativity, and the simple power of being human. And that was the point. Humanity had met the Galactic Empire. They had faced the fleet, the simulations, and the council. And in the end, they had done it their way, surviving, adapting, and laughing. The Empire would never forget them, and neither would the galaxy.